Here we go, day 2 off and running NFL free agency. Let's talk about it. The stream is live here on YouTube. The comment section already active. Appreciate everybody already in here as the video is getting started. Lots to get to about the Houston Texans and what they are doing in free agency. Got to break down the stuff that we didn't get to on the stream yesterday. And if you've missed the video, what are you doing? We broke it down on a video this morning. We got to talk about Joe Mixon, the new running back one for the Houston Texans, what that means for the Texans offense. What else is left in free agency? What else do you want the Texans to do? So much to get to. Get in the comment section and let me know what's going on, and plenty of interaction over the course of the stream. Appreciate you stopping by. Let's start with the trade for Joe Mixon. Compensation not announced yet. At least I haven't seen it. If you've seen it, go in here and let me know. But compensation for Joe Mixon in the trade not announced yet. But Mixon was supposed to be released, and it feels like the Bengals did this on purpose to basically have exactly what happened play out. The Bengals say, hey, we're going to release Joe Mixon. We're signing Zach Moss. Obviously, Moss doesn't become official until tomorrow. So with that, the Texans then call up the Cincinnati Bengals, and they find a way to get Joe Mixon. Now, if that draft compensation is anything more than a 6th, 5th, 7th round pick or something like that, this deal gets a little bit different. But Mixon was one of the best veterans that was available that the Texans could go out there and get. If he was just a flat-out free agent when this thing all started, I would have slotted him 3rd or 4th behind Barkley, Jacobs, and probably Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry, I liked him a little bit more as the free agency process got closer, so I was pretty intrigued with a Derrick Henry potential Texans signing, but I would have put Mixon 3rd or 4th. I would have put him ahead of guys like DeAndre Swift, ahead of guys like Tony Pollard, ahead of the Antonio Gibsons, the Austin Ecklers of the world. He would have been one of the high priority running backs for the Texans. Ultimately, they avoid having to chase him in free agency by trading for him. It's just a simple 1-year deal left on his contract, not that much money. It probably gets expensive, not real expensive, but more expensive than his current contract if he hits free agency. And of course, you can't guarantee that he's going to end up on the Texans if he hits wide open free agency. You guarantee that by trading it. The Bengals get a little something for a guy that they weren't even going to keep because they moved on to Zach Moss. I guess Mixon made just a tiny bit too much money for them. And I don't know that it was always sunshine and rainbows with Joe Mixon and the Bengals in the way that they ran offense. What does Mixon bring to the table? Well, he's a little do-it-all running back. He can catch the ball out of the backfield. It's not amazing. It's not Barkley or Swift or CMC, but Joe Mixon can get it done through the air catching the ball. He can also get it done on the ground. He's been a bell cow in Cincinnati, getting a ton of carries and the number one guy for the Bengals for a few years now. And when you start looking at the stats, 12 touchdowns total last year, 9 on the ground, over 1,000 yards rushing. He's got playoff experience. There's a lot of tread on this tire. Okay? He's going to play this year at the age of 28. I don't know what the Texans are going to do with him beyond the age of 28. Okay, but he's going to play this year at 28, and he's got a good amount of carries. He's never been like the carries leader like Derrick Henry, but he's got a good amount of carries and a good amount of touches overall when you factor in his receptions. He checks in close to 2,000 or so touches when you add the receptions and the carries together. But again, he is a productive player. He's been productive pretty much any time the team has been good. Like if the team is good that he's on, he's usually pretty productive. You look back to 2 years ago, 2021, 3 years ago now, 2 seasons ago, I guess 3 seasons ago now at this point, 1,205 rushing yards, 13 touchdowns. He added another 314 yards receiving with 3 touchdowns. There's production there for Joe Mixon. It's a really solid move. I know there's some conversation and some extra stuff about, hey, what about the legal stuff like that? Look, Joe Mixon has had a not great off the field situation, but that's a long time ago. I know there's been some hemming and hawing with some recent off-the-field stuff. The Texans clearly feel comfortable enough with that to bring him in, make him running back one, and I really believe they're going to add to that running back room as well. Maybe it's another veteran. We can go through the list of guys that are out there and maybe fit, or maybe it is a draft pick as well. So that's where I am on Joe Mixon. We'll talk a little bit more about him. I want to talk to you about it as well in the comment section. BG starting it off. Let's get the super chat going today. Let's go. BG, I appreciate that, man. Thank you so much. Appreciate the super chat getting us started here. Very generous of you, very kind of you. Thank you so much for the super chat. If you have a comment that you want me to get to, the super chat's a great way to get to the front of the line. But if you want to just throw it in the comment section, we'll get to it as well. Let me fire through some of these. Lots of people in here, more people joining. I'll get to as many comments and conversation points as possible. And then we'll also kind of be keeping our eyes out, keeping a peek, taking a gander at what might move in free agency, some other moves. Most of the big moves are done here, okay? Most of the big moves are done, but there's still moves here or there that the Texans could go out there and make, or some of these other teams could go out there and make. I also saw a lot of discussion about other players on offense, other positions on offense the Texans should address. Certainly something that we can get into. Michael Harris fires off first. The play action for CJ is going to be fire. Yeah, that's going to be a fun one. That's going to be interesting to see. Mike's Book Reviews, who is fantastic on here on YouTube. You got to follow Mike's Book Reviews if you read books at all. He does a great job breaking them down. Spoilers, non-spoilers, gives you background details, knows the authors, great stuff. He says, I'm good with Mixon. Hope they bring in a running back too, though. Most likely to happen in the draft. Still hoping for Danielle Hunter. I just don't see Nick outbidding polls. Yeah, look, Danielle Hunter is an incredible pass rusher, a lot of success with the Minnesota Vikings last year. He's a guy to certainly pay attention to in free agency, one of the biggest free agents left in free agency. He's top 10 on some people's free agency list. He's still hanging out there in free agency. But as far as the running back room, look, Mixon needs a running mate. If that's Dameon Pierce, if the Texans are comfortable with it being Dameon Pierce, then they know something about Dameon Pierce that we don't. And Dameon Pierce got a lot better at the game of football and running this offense in the offseason. But I would think that someone who is either a full-on, straight-up power back or someone who is maybe even more geared towards that pass catcher, third down, scat back type of situation. So someone maybe on either end of the spectrum to add to Mixon, who, while he does a little bit of both, there have been moments where the Bengals have turned to different running backs than Joe Mixon in key moments. And I wonder if some of that is just the overall limitations, and they use him a lot. Like there have been series where the Bengals go Mixon. They get down to like the 10-yard line. Then it's throwing it to the wide receivers, the tight ends that they've had, and then throwing it to the other backs because Mixon got them there. So that's something to pay attention to as well. Yoshi Effect win. Are you surprised? No one has signed Patrick Queen yet. I am surprised. This morning, I guess the report from maybe DJ Bieneme said that the Texans checked in on Patrick Queen first. They offered Patrick Queen $10 million a year. He decided that wasn't enough. And then the Texans moved to Azeez Al-Shaair. And that was the decision that they decided to go to. It's interesting to me that Azeez Al-Shaair, I got to say his name right. I got to work on it. Al-Shaair, excuse me. Azeez Al-Shaair. It's interesting to me that they were offering Queen $10 million and Al-Shaair was getting more than that, slightly more, but more than that. And so I do wonder if the NFL is telling us about Patrick Queen that the NFL believes he was good because Roquan Smith was his running mate at the linebacker position. So that is something that I feel like the NFL is kind of telling us with the lack of interest in Patrick Queen. Now, Patrick Queen, okay, he hangs around long enough. The money gets right. You want to add him to Christian Harris and Al-Shaair? Be my guest. But I got to imagine that Patrick Queen's hanging out waiting for somebody to get desperate, but also have the money to be interested in him. Landry Locker from the locker room here, and of course on Sports Radio 610. 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. each and every day. He calls me the king of the stream. Far from it. Far from it. I think Landry's kind of the king of the stream, but we did do 6 hours yesterday. We're going to go till we stop having fun today. How about that? I see comments about J.K. Dobbins. I see his name pop in there a little bit. Look, Dobbins as a guy that's in camp as fighting for a spot. So maybe it's, let's say, Mixon, Dobbins, Dameon Pierce, sort of that Dare Agumbawale style player that's mostly special teams but can help out, and then a rookie. Like, if those are your five, Patrick Queen just got signed. Hold on now. We were just talking about Patrick Queen maybe taking a deal with somebody. He's going to go to the Pittsburgh Steelers. So Queen headed to the Pittsburgh Steelers on a 3-year, $41 million contract. So if you're hoping for, bargain Patrick Queen, you're not going to get it. That's a nice pickup for the Steelers. Queen checks in just over Azeez Al-Shire at $13.6 million. Al-Shire ended up a little over $11 million a year. So Queen checks in a little bit ahead of him. But that running back room, sorry, I didn't mean to get off task here. But, if the running back room is Mixon, veteran, Pierce, special teams forward guy, and rookie, if those are the five guys and you figure out, okay, 3 guys out of that 5 is what we're keeping, that's a pretty good training camp battle to watch and pay attention to. Mixon's clearly the one, and I don't know that we can clearly say Dameon Pierce is going to be on this team or going to be on this roster. Like, can he help on special teams? Can he do some of the stuff that Dare Agumbawale did? Is he good enough to be the number 2 back? Look, I would love for Dameon Pierce to show up, be good enough to be the number 2 back, and then have a rookie be the 3rd guy and have him play a little special teams, help out when he needs to. And then you've got the running back room sort of built for succession. You go Joe Mixon for a year, okay, Dameon Pierce for 1 more year, okay, and then it's the rookies' time. Like, you build the succession of the running back room and kind of fill in around them. That would be nice to see. But I don't know exactly what they're going to do. We can go through some of the free agent running back options here in just a little while and see if there's a free agent that you're just dying to see show up. Again, I think it's more going to kind of be the Dare Agumbawale type versus like another big name to show up. I must panda lean. I like how y'all just quit on a dude that sensational first year and then a down year under a new coaching staff. I'm not quitting on him. I just don't know if he can help the Houston Texans right now. And the Texans showed us they didn't believe that he could help them because they didn't get a lot of run there towards the back end of the season when Devin Singletary was taking care of business. And they wouldn't have checked in on every single every single running back in free agency if they thought Dameon Pierce was a competent guy. Look, he's got to bounce back. And if he bounces back, they're going to be in fine shape with Mixon and Pierce and somebody else. If he doesn't bounce back, then it's going to be a really tough and rough situation for Dameon Pierce. He's maybe buried on the depth chart. He's maybe not on the team. My buddy Jeff with the super chat. Jeff, appreciate the super chat. Is Joe Mixon more salsa dancer or ballerina? He's more salsa dancer because he can get a little spicy. He's not afraid to get into some of that contact from defenders. Not going to run through everybody, but he's not afraid to get hit and fight for that extra yard. I feel like a ballerina running back is a guy that more tries to avoid contact, goes lateral. Mixon can get lateral, hit what he needs to hit, and then run into a linebacker or a DB or something like that. Not a big guy, not a small guy, and then contact will be something that he is not worried about. Jeff, I appreciate the super chat. Thanks so much, man. Is he more salsa dancer or ballerina? I like that. Soccer Timmy, can the Texans afford Danielle Hunter? Sure, you can afford anybody. I mean, I know the cap space is not totally updated and over the cap, but the Texans have not spent all this money. Set aside, pretend like you set aside $25 million or so for rookies and incidentals and stuff during the season and stuff like that. So you're looking at, another $20 million or so. You can manipulate some contracts. You can free some space up with a player cutting here or there. Hunter is not out of the question. Hunter's not out of the question. It's just what does he want? how competitive is the market for him? And does he totally exactly fit what the Houston Texans want to do with that defensive end spot? Now, remember, they added Danico Autry. We talked about that on the stream yesterday. 34 years old this year when he plays for the Texans. So he's going to be a guy that's rushing the passer for this team. And I do wonder if there's other pass rush options that are going to show up. Joe Thomas, the Browns Hall of Fame offensive lineman, asks, what did the Texans give up for Mixon? That's not been reported yet. It's not been reported yet. The Texans, however, when you look at their draft picks that they've got in this upcoming draft, they own picks currently 23, 59, 86, 123, 127, and then 238, 247, and 252. So I wonder if maybe if it's a draft pick in this draft, if it's a couple of those 7th round picks, if it's maybe, hey, swapping 4ths or something like that, moving around with some of what the Bengals have. Let's see. The Bengals pick, what do they pick in the 5th round? So if it's the Bengals pick 149. So if the Texans dropped from, say, 127 to 149, so it was Mixon and a 5th for a 4th, that's not a bad deal. That's not a bad deal. You have 2 4th-round picks this year, okay? You have 2 4th-round picks. Still got your 1st, your 2nd. You got the Eagles' 3rd-round pick, okay? You got the Eagles' 3rd-round pick. So if you drop, say, 20 spots to get Joe Mixon, that's not bad. If you straight up give up the 4th-round pick, I don't love that. I do feel like it's more than likely a late round pick swap, as Peace Dog says, or just a flat out sending of late round picks. So something like both 2 of the 7ths or 2 7ths, and the Bengals send back a 6 with Mixon, something like that. I don't believe it'll be anything expensive because, again, the Bengals were going to cut this guy. They were going to get rid of him, so they were going to cut this guy. Loverget, we do not know the compensation yet. It is not official. Jerome Kick says, we couldn't pay Queen what he just got. Patrick Queen just got a 3-year, $41 million contract with the Pittsburgh Steelers. They were checking in at Queen at $10 million a year, according to ESPN's DJ Baname. And then they decided to go to Azeez Al-Shire. And so with Al-Shire and him under contract, you weren't going back to Queen. You weren't adding that. You weren't spending $20 million, something like that. You weren't spending $20 million on 2 brand new linebackers for this team. Though, look, Queen and Azeez Al-Shire and Christian Harris would have been. Woo. So the tough part about the linebacker spot for this free agency group is you've got some interesting options, and you saw Shire come off the board, Patrick Queen, some interesting options. It's not a great draft for linebackers. So teams spending a little bit more than they have previously for linebackers is something to pay attention to. So Queen, I don't believe got anywhere near what he was hoping he was going to get. But at the same time, linebacker has been a popular position for people. Like Frankie Louvu got over $10 million a year. Azeez Al-Shire got over $11 million a year. Patrick Queen gets over $13.5 million a year. Jordan Brooks got $8.75 a year. Blake Cashman got $8.5 a year. Andrew Van Ginkel, who's a little kind of, a little bit of a do-it-all type guy, kind of does the outside linebacker thing, can do the inside linebacker thing. $10 million for him. Kenneth Murray, almost $8 million a year for him. So a lot of guys got paid that are just solid players because it's a weak linebacking class. And there's still some linebackers out there that are interesting names. As far as your traditional linebacker, Bobby Wagner's a veteran that could bounce around for a couple teams. Josie Jewell's a guy from Denver that I actually like a lot. Devin White is a guy out of Tampa. I got to think that Tampa's going to want to keep him. So a lot of different options there. Linebacker from a veteran standpoint, you don't want to be needing a linebacker in this upcoming draft. Don't want to be needing a linebacker. So free agent linebacker stock up, draft stock for linebacker down in this year's draft. All All right, let's get David in here. David wants to chat with us. David, what do you got for us, man? Fire away. David doesn't want to chat anymore. All right, that's fine. You can hit the link at the top of the chat if you want to get in audio or video. Don't be nervous. Just come in here, chit chat. Don't take up too much time. We'll keep it moving. We'll move along a little bit here. So the Texans, after the stream was over last night, made a couple of different moves, which we will talk about after we get to David, who's back. David, what do you got for us, man? Fire away.
Hey, what's up, man? How you doing, Stoots?
Fantastic, man. What do you got?
Oh man. My thing is, I wanted to say, I feel like it's weird that we traded for Mixon, but I understand it because I feel like we should not have let him hit the market. The way that yesterday all the running backs that we were second or third or whatever, they all got scooped up. Henry's with the damn Baltimore Ravens. Oh my God. But yeah, I just feel like I wanted to say, and I'll message on one of your videos from yesterday. Yeah, man, that's crazy. I'm very happy with it. It just, as long as we ain't giving, if we can give them all the sevens, that's cool.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't
And
have to wait around on draft.
I just don't want to go anything but I don't know if you say past or before. I don't want to go nothing. The fourth round, that's fine. Anything after the fourth or the third round, anything after the third round, give them.
I don't think he's going to cost that.
Fine.
I don't
With
think he's
Joe
going to cost
Mixon,
that.
and I feel like Joe Mixon is better than Zach Moss. Honestly.
Oh yeah, I think he's way better.
He has had a much more prolific career, however you say that. You know,
Sure.
He's had a more of a career than Zach Moss that came out when John Taylor was hurt. Yeah, he was hurt, but he was the guy that. I mean, he did good. Yeah, he busted our ass in I think week 1, but still, I just wanted to come on here and say I appreciate you, man, and I know I've been following you for a long time and watching everything. I was with you all 6 hours yesterday, and
nice. I appreciate it, David.
I was so happy today. We got a damn running back.
Got a damn.
I'm just hoping it don't cost us a first, second, third, and whoa, my God! Like, what is it costing us, really?
David, appreciate you jumping in, man. Thank you. Good stuff from David jumping in. Look, the compensation comes down. That'll season a little bit exactly what we think about Joe Mixon. I don't believe it's going to be anything crazy. I don't believe it's going to be anything too expensive. So I'm not worried about that aspect of it. I really think it'd be, just a late pick, late pick or late couple picks. Hell, maybe you send them next year's 5th or something like that. I don't think it's going to cost a 4th. I don't think it's going to cost, a next year's 4th or anything like that. But I like my idea. Drop down that 2nd, 4th round pick into the 5th round and call it a day. Mike, do you want to get in here? I saw you kind of on camera, kind of off camera. You there?
Yeah, I'm here, man. What's up,
on, Mike? Fire away, man.
I kind of like the Joe Mixon pickup because not only that, he played 2 games against the Ravens and the Browns, so their defense, and that kind of got us in trouble last year. We couldn't run the ball when we got to the playoffs. So hey, somebody that's been successful against them 2 times a year, like when we come to the playoffs and you want to run the ball. So that was kind of one of the good things I picked up. And I love your show, man. Keep doing your thing, and that's it.
Hey, I appreciate you jumping in, Mike. Thank you. Yeah, Mike brings up a good point here. If you have success against the Baltimore Ravens in Cincy, where the offensive line's been kind of maybe you have some success against the Ravens here. You're going to get to face the Ravens again, Joe Mixon, because they're on the schedule for the Houston Texans this year. And, of course, Baltimore has a new running back as well as Derrick Henry signed there. Here's one thing that I would say. About the rushing attack and improving the running back. I don't care who the running back is if the offensive line doesn't get squared away. They've got to figure out this offensive line, get them healthy and get them consistent. We know 3 spots for sure. We know left tackle's Laremy Tunsil, We know right tackle's Titus Howard, and we know right guard is Shaq Mason. And then we know Juice Scruggs is going to fill one of the two spots, either center or left guard. Then they've got Jarrett Patterson, Kendrick Green, and Kenyon Green to fight for that other spot. Maybe it's center, maybe it is left guard because Scruggs is going to play center, whatever it is. They've got options. They got to figure out who the 5 guys are, get them in there, keep them healthy, and run the damn ball a lot better than they have. Part of that will be a running back talent increase. The other part of that will be hopefully consistency along the offensive line and health along the offensive lines. They had a moment here or there, I suppose, running the football last year, but ultimately they were 23rd in total rushing yards, and they were 29th in yards per carry. So it was not good by any means. And if they get to average, above average, or hell, they get to good as a rushing attack, that offense is going to explode and take off. Clayton wants to weigh in. Clayton, what do you got for us, man?
Yeah, Cody, I got quick question. What's up with the Texans and trying to salvage careers at CB2 instead of kind of going to get another lockdown corner? And with that being said, do you think since as of right now we haven't really addressed the cornerback 2 position primarily with somebody like a stud, that means that in the first round more than likely we'll be tackling cornerback or D-line?
Yeah, look, I think the thing that they have done here is they've not sort of shoehorned themselves. Clayton, I appreciate the question. They've not shoehorned themselves into a certain position when it comes to the first round. There's a lot of corners in this draft that I really like. A lot of corners. There's 5 guys that I feel like are first round or going to go in the first round. It starts with Quinyon Mitchell from Toledo. I believe he's the best corner in this draft. Terrion Arnold from Alabama. Kool-Aid McKinstry from Alabama. Nate Wiggins from Clemson, Enos Rakestraw Jr. from Missouri. Cooper DeJean is sort of that tweener. Is he a safety? Is he a corner? Is he a first rounder? Is he a second rounder? Kamari Lassiter is a guy that's a second rounder. Then there's some depth there in the second, third round. Cam Hart, Max Melton, guys like that. So there's a lot of corners that I like for the Texans to go chase. I feel like Okudah is here because if they get the right corner, that guy's there to push Okudah and maybe push him out onto the depth, onto the bench and into the depth of this team. And Okudah's there in case they get to 23 and a badass a badass defensive lineman is there. They don't have to get a cornerback. Okay, so they've given themselves a little bit of wiggle room with that first round pick, and there could be some guys there in the second round from a cornerback standpoint that would be interesting to pay attention to that, could help maybe a little bit early and then a lot if they grow into it. Ideally, you'd love to grab, say, a second or third round cornerback and have them be ready to take over for Okudah at the end of the year, and then you don't have to have Okudah. You don't have to resign him or you have him around, but it's sort of that stopgap there at cornerback until you can get a young guy in there. Or Okudah's a young guy. If he plays well and it's November 1st and you want to extend him, go for it. Go for it. So, but yeah, they're not beholden to cornerback or defensive line at 23 or their second round pick right now. Vincent wants to weigh in. Vincent, fire away, man. What you got?
What's going on, man? Hey, I just got a quick question for you. Is the Texans going to go after safety?
Yeah, man. It's a good question. I don't know exactly what their plan is here at safety. They added some DBs, in Lonnie Johnson and Mike Ford. Now, Johnson's played a little safety, but he's not a depth guy that you really want to put on the field. They've got 4 guys at safety that played for them last year that they trust. They've got, obviously, Jimmy Ward, Jalen Petrie as the starters, and then Eric Murray's back as a key backup, and then MJ Stewart is back as a key backup as well. Would I like for them to go get, say, Justin Simmons and make that safety position a big strength? Yes, I would. I don't know that totally fits. I wonder if safety is a position similar to the tight end acquisition of Dalton Schultz last year where, hey, the market kind of hit, and then some guys didn't really find what they were looking for, and so maybe you get a deal. So I wonder if there's a safety name out there. Simmons is the top guy, but Micah Hyde, Jordan Poyer. You know, if the market just totally bottoms out for Cameron Curl, the kid from Washington, I'd be interested in a conversation with him. But it's not it's not a necessity, but I certainly would like for them to go get another safety.
Everybody would like for us to get a safety. One more question, and
Sure.
then I'll leave you go. Any update on the D tackle, the 49ers D tackle? I keep on forgetting his name.
Eric Armstead.
Eric Armstead, yeah.
It's been super quiet on Eric Armstead. I thought some team that's just needs depth would scoop him up right away. He has got an injury that he had surgery on here in the offseason, so I wonder if there's hey, let's get through free agency, then let's talk to him and find out about the injury, you know, have him go to some doctors, learn a little bit more. How's he progressing? How's he healing? Because the last thing you want to do, look, he did not take a pay cut with the 49ers because he felt like the defensive line market was going to speak to him and pay him a little bit more than the pay cut the 49ers. So he clearly wants a little bit of cash. You also don't want to spend a little bit of cash on a guy like him and then find out, oh, he's not going to be ready for training camp because he had a surgery in the offseason. So I wonder if maybe there's just a little bit of medical weight for him.
All right. Thanks, Cody Stoots.
Vincent, appreciate you jumping in. Jacob, get to you. I want to get to some comments here in just a second. I think it's important to think about with the safety spot. Before Eric Murray got hurt, Eric Murray was playing a ton for this team in the 3 safety look. And they trust him, brought him back. I know when he first got to Houston as a big-time investment from Bill O'Brien and Jack Easterby, it didn't make a lot of sense. He turned into a nice backup player, and he's a guy that I don't think is a bad player by any means. He's a solid player. They trusted him. They trusted him with the defense. And I don't know if it was exactly I don't remember exactly the phrasing or how he talked about it, but D'Amico Ryans was pretty bummed when Murray was done for the year. I wish I could remember the phrasing off the top of my head. But he was not happy that he didn't have Eric Murray to sort of deploy as a weapon off the bench. Jacob wants to weigh in. Fire away, Jacob.
Hey, good morning, Cody. I say good morning. I woke up at 2 o'clock in the morning, dropped my mom off the airport, and woke back up to this news, so that's pretty good. I was just going to ask, do you think we'll end up looking back on this trade and kind of feel better about it than paying an arm and leg for someone like, say, Saquon or maybe even the Jacobs? And also, are you excited for the new uniforms?
Yes, I am excited for the new uniforms. I think you got your hat. The color there may be a little bit of an included on the new uniforms. Kind of my shirt, maybe a little bit closer to this color, something like that. So I am excited about the new uniforms. I would think some news will start trickling out about those. Just maybe some descriptors. I wouldn't say pictures or anything like that. I think it's going to be very lock and key until then. And then to answer your question about, hey, will you like Mixon more in the long run than a guy like Barkley or pay one of these other guys? It's possible. The thing I would tell you about a Barkley investment, a investment in Swift or Pollard or one of the multi-year investment. So like the running back room is set for 2024 right now. Not set, but like you have an idea who running back 1 is. You have a depth piece in Damian Pierce you need to add to it. It's like you see the vision for 2024. 2025 is a total question mark. If you had Saquon Barkley, if you had Tony Pollard, if you had Henry, you'd know what 2025 looks like. You know what next year looks like. And look, you draft the right guy, maybe you understand what 2025 is come training camp time. But for the investment in Mixon, the financial, they're clearly not ready to pay a whole bunch of money for a running back. So from that financial investment and to have 2024 settled and him be one of the better running backs that change teams, it's a nice move.
Maybe they're just saving it all for that CJ contract when it comes around.
I tell you what, with as cautious as they've been with the money, it almost feels like a guarantee that Nico Collins is getting an extension.
Yeah, I've thought about that. Yeah.
Nick Caserio randomly brought him up at the scouting combine. When he was asked about him a little bit more, when we talked to him at the scouting combine, he's like, look, we will do deals whenever. He's like, so if it's after free agency, if it's after the draft, if it's before training camp, if it's during training camp. So I would think Nico Collins, if he doesn't have the deal on the table now, he's going to have a deal or deals on the table over the course of the summer. And I would think that a large part of the, hey, let's not spend a bunch of money on a bunch of different guys in free agency is because they want to pay. He's the only guy that can get an extension. Like, he's the only guy you're extending. So it's got to be Nico for the financial commitment.
I would hope so.
Yep. Jake, I appreciate you jumping in, man. Good stuff. Good stuff. Yeah, that blue that Jacob's got, the blue that I got here, you never know. You never know. Might show up there in that that new uniform situation. Joe, I see you there. I'll get to you in just a second. A couple of comments from the comment section. We need a defensive end. Yeah, you need some defensive end help. Nico Autry ain't it. He can't be the only thing you do at defensive end. So if that's Chase Young on a 1-year deal, if that's Jadeveon Clowney on a mercenary deal, because Clowney does, mercenary stuff now. I think the big thing to understand about Autry is he can play a little defensive tackle. He can play a little defensive end. So if you add a defensive end, it's not like there's no place to play that guy. One, they rotate defensive linemen. They do that big hockey change where they go 4 in, 4 out. And two, on pass rush downs, I mean, imagine dumping Nico Autry inside and bringing Chase Young off the bench and having Chase Young, Will Anderson at the ends, Autry and Collins at the tackles rushing the passer. Like, that's a really interesting, fun scenario. Or, hey, the 23rd overall pick shakes out the right way. You got Nico Autry as Super Jerry Hughes, which is a more productive, older guy who's part of the rotation and doesn't start because you're starting the young guy opposite, Will Anderson. Joe wants to weigh in. Joe, what do you got for us, man?
Hey, bud, what's going on? Got 2 points for you. One, love the Joe Mixon pickup. I think him and Saquon Barkley's numbers were almost identical last year, so we're getting the better deal, I think. But number 2, with going heavy on defense and free agency, what do you think about a Brian Thomas or a Troy Franklin at number 23 this year?
Boy, two wide receivers that I really like. I like Troy Franklin a lot. He's one of my favorite wide receivers in this draft. He was awesome. He was awesome for Oregon, which runs past people. My favorite thing Daniel Jeremiah said about him was there's the blood of a lot of cornerbacks on his hands, which I think is great. And then Brian Thomas Jr., he got a lot of love at the combine for being a technician, being a guy that really loves football, could describe his game in detail. He could play inside and outside, which is a big advantage for him. Franklin's more of an outside guy. The versatility of Thomas probably appeals to the Texans a little bit more. Franklin should be there. Thomas, I think Brian Thomas is going to be an Indianapolis Colt. I would think that they're going to select him at 15. But if he's there, I mean, you can do a whole lot worse. He's a very fun player, bigger guy than some of these other wide receivers, fast. I mean, Xavier Worthy got a lot of love for how fast he was. Thomas was only slightly slower on the 40, and he's 20 pounds, 30 pounds heavier than Xavier Worthy. So Thomas is a fun prospect. I like him a lot. And then Mixon versus Barkley, I'm going to pull the numbers up real quick and look at that. But, I mean, look, the Texans would tell you they got a guy that they trust for a whole lot less money. That's just kind of how they've operated with this running back spot, and they seem pretty good with it. I appreciate it, Joe. Thanks, man.
All right, peace out, brother.
Good stuff from Joe. Yeah, man. Wide receiver at 23. It's a fun idea, man. It's a real fun idea. It's kind of a luxury because you don't have to have a wide receiver at 23. You've got Nico Collins under contract for at least this year, maybe more if he gets extended. You've got Tank Dell under contract for the next 3 seasons. Noah Brown is a nice depth piece. I said this about Noah Brown on a video I did this morning, as well as in the writing that I did at Houston Football, which, by the way, check out Houston Football, www.houfootball.com. Links in the description down below. It's where I do all my writing about the Texans. 1,600 plus words about day one of free agency yesterday. And if you don't want to just comb through all 1,600 words, it's broken up into sections. I make it easy to read. It's really good stuff. $7 a month. That's all it is. You can get signed up there. If you sign up and you want a free day, let me know. I'll get you a free day. We'll get you a free day, get you signed up. You can browse through the website, see if it's worth it. And then you'll find out it's worth it, and then boom. You toss me some cash. Noah Brown, if he's your third best wide receiver, I don't love that wide receiver room. If Noah Brown's your fourth best wide receiver, you've got a pretty good wide receiver room. If Noah Brown's your fifth best wide receiver, you've got a really good wide receiver room. Like Noah Brown as the fifth wide receiver on this team, as a guy that helps a little bit at slot, helps a little bit on the outside, rotates in with guys after they, go deep and stuff like that. Like, that's a nice player. If he's the third guy on the field in 3 wide receiver sets, I don't know if you did enough at the wide receiver spot. But Noah Brown as the 5th guy, Noah Brown as the 4th guy, it gets a lot more interesting of a wide receiver if that's the case. Greg with a good comment. I'm going to get to as many of these comments as I can. I appreciate everybody. Greg with a good comment here. No Chase Young. Wait for Joey Bosa or Khalil Mack when they get cut. Yeah, look, that's certainly something that the Texans could think about. Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa are both on the outs because of the financial commitment to them in their contracts. So if they get cut, they get released by the Chargers, or, hey, the Chargers are going to cut this guy. Oh, wait, hold on. Can we rework the contract, lower it, and trade for the guy? That's something too. That you just saw it with Joe Mixon, basically. Loki with the super chat. Thank you. Appreciate that. He then follows it up with another super chat. I appreciate the super chat, Loki. Daniil Hunter, Gay, and Quandre Diggs. Gay. What player are you talking about there? Should I know off the top of my head who that player is? It's not jumping off the page for me. I don't know who you're talking about. Quandre Diggs as a backup safety, hell yes. Daniil Hunter, he might be too expensive. You might run out of money. I mean, it's kind of the same thing we just talked about with Chase Young. Do you go for Daniil Hunter? Do you get the big expensive guy in free agency? Or do you hope that Bosa, Mack get cut? You could chase them as sort of bargain options. If you don't get them, maybe you swing back around to Hunter. Gay. Is there a gay free agency player that I don't know about? He's a linebacker, isn't he? The Google machine will not be kind to me if I type that in. I'm on the wrong webpage typing it in. Hold on. I know the chat's probably said it already. Willie Gay, the linebacker from Kansas City. See, I knew it was I knew there was one. I'm sure the chat, yeah, Willie Gay, KC, Willie Gay. Yeah, there you go. Sure. I mean, add some linebacker depth. Add another guy. They did add today another linebacker, more of a special teams guy, Delshon Phillips from the Ravens. So they added him today. Again, a lot of special teams players, which tells me that some guys that are on the team now, your spots are not safe. If Ford and Lonnie Johnson and Phillips are all here to be special teams aces, there's some depth guys that are not safe. Connor wants to weigh in. Connor, what do you got for us, man?
What's going on, Cody? I just question on what you thought would be like the best situation as far as we got Joe Mixon. Obviously, would it be a good situation to try to reunite him and Higgins, or say maybe Boyd, to try to get a fill in for that as far as a wide receiver, to try to push for something like that, or maybe go and try to spend a little extra money and try to maybe Ayuk wants out, maybe get him in free agency. I know it could be a little bit more expensive, but as far as the draft, you already have a lot of pieces that you could fill in and plug and play, and then you can adapt with the draft as far as getting pieces that you need extra as far as that goes. And I say, I know the running back room isn't that great as far as draft wise, but maybe later in the draft, maybe get the kid from Wisconsin or maybe the Tennessee kid. Maybe have that extra depth of running back. And I just wanted to see what your opinion would be on that take.
For sure. I'm gonna drop you down into the backstage because there's some background noise, but I'll answer that for sure. So T. Higgins, I got no interest in T. Higgins. He's going to be expensive. Okay, he's going to be expensive, and I would imagine the Bengals want a first-round pick for him. He's been a productive top of the second-round player when they drafted him. So I don't think that the draft compensation works out great for Higgins, in addition to paying him. And Nico Collins is better. Nico Collins is a better wide receiver than T. Higgins. He was more productive this year than Higgins was any year of his career. And so I'm more comfortable paying Nico Collins than adding Higgins, paying him, and then that being literally the floor for Nico Collins. Now, Ayuk is a different story. Ayuk's a different conversation. Again, if you get Brandon Ayuk, it costs you a draft pick, probably a first rounder. I don't know that I love 23rd overall for Brandon Ayuk. If you use a second round pick, you still got to pay him. I don't love chasing those guys when Collins worked well for 1 year. An extension for him is going to be cheaper than Higgins when he hits free agency next year, or Ayuk when you go to the negotiating table for him. And I would just pay Collins, keep Dell, draft a guy at 23 or in the second round or in the third round. And just, I mean, this is a really, really deep wide receiver class. 3 guys could go in the top 10. 5 guys could go in the top 15. Like, it's a really deep class. And even if you knocked off the top 5 guys, let's say it was Harrison Jr., Malik Neighbors from LSU, Rome Odunze from Washington, and let's call it Brian Thomas Jr. and Adonai Mitchell from LSU and Texas. Let's say you knock off the top 5 guys. There's still players like Keon Coleman from Florida State, Ladd McConkey at Georgia, Troy Franklin at Oregon, Xavier Worthy from Texas, Xavier Legette from South Carolina, Roman Wilson from Michigan, Ricky Purcell from Florida, Jalen Polk from Washington, Malachi Corley from Western Kentucky, Jermaine Burton from Alabama, Jalen McMillan from Washington, Tez Walker from North Carolina, Baker from UCF. Like, it's a really deep wide receiver class. So I'm more in favor of Nico Collins extended, Tank Dell on the rookie deal, and a wide receiver in this draft on the rookie deal. That kind of being your top 3. Xavier Worthy, John Mechie, they have a little battle for who the 4th wide receiver is. Noah Brown's your 5th wide receiver. Like, that's how I kind of see this in an ideal world shaken out. Luke McCaffrey's another name. Thank you, Grim Balls. What a name. So there's a lot of wide receivers. So trading for one is just, I don't love it. I don't love it. I don't love Justin Jefferson in a trade. Obviously, Justin Jefferson's awesome. He's really good. CJ Stroud would fall out of his chair if he found out the Texans traded for Justin Jefferson. But I love this wide receiver draft. I've never believed in a wide receiver draft as much as I believe in this one. I really like a lot of these players, and they're going to be very productive players on day 2 and even into day 3. I'm trying to think about exactly what year it is that it's going to be. It's going to be similar to. It's going to be similar to 2019. So but guys are going to go higher. So it's going to be 2019 with a chunk of guys at the top that are better. So like 2019, Hollywood Brown was the first wide receiver at 25. Like, the first wide receiver may go 4 this year, maybe goes 3 to the Patriots. Okay. But so there's going to be a chunk at the top. And then these were non-first round picks at wide receiver in 2019. Deebo Samuel, AJ Brown, Mecole Hardman, who was kind of productive, DK Metcalf, Deontay Johnson, Scary Terry McLaurin, runner Hunter Renfrow, who was productive for a little while, Darius Slayton, who was productive for a little while. Like, that's what, like, it's going to be a super version of 2019 in this draft. So that's where I'm kind of leaning towards moves. Okay, we got some Chase Young news. It's not a signing, though. He's set to visit the Panthers and the Saints this week. And according to Tom Pelissero, a handful of teams have expressed interest in Young, the 2020 Defensive Rookie of the Year, who's 24 years old. Okay. Chase Young's going to go on tour to figure out his next team. Marcus wants to weigh in. Marcus, what do you got for us?
Hey, Cody. Appreciate you having me on here. Really like the day streams, man. You know, it's good to catch them. I really can at night, so I appreciate you. I just had a couple questions for you. Well, you answered one of them. Well, I was going to ask you about Justin Jefferson with Kirk Cousins being gone. He said he wanted to wait until to see what Kirk Cousins did before he signed a contract. So obviously we know how you feel on that. But as far as the draft goes, you know, I really like Sweat, and every mock draft I see has him going in the second round. So what would you do with the first round pick if you can get like a guy like Sweat in the second?
I don't know that you need to draft Sweat in the second. I would think that he's maybe a third round pick, but I don't know. He tested really well at the combine. He weighed in at the right weight for everybody. And from what I understand, the personality is infectious. He's not as football junky as some of these other guys come off, but he hasn't needed to be a football junkie. Like when Darius Robinson, so this is a good example of like your environment sets you up a certain way. So Darius Robinson, the Missouri defensive lineman, he plays defensive tackle and defensive end at Missouri. He plays basically the entire defensive line. So when he talks about defensive line play, he breaks it down in a very analytical way because he's probably had to learn it all that way. T'Vondre Sweat's a huge human being whose job is to maul the people in front of him. Like he doesn't need to be technical. So, I don't know that he wins from like a technical standpoint. You could do a lot worse than Sweat in the second. I just don't know if he fits exactly what the Texans need out of a defensive tackle spot next to Collins to the point where they would draft him in the second. And if they got a guy in the first round that was a defensive lineman, then I would think that probably takes Sweat totally out of the equation. I would prefer Byron Murphy, obviously. If he drops at 23, I'd prefer Darius Robinson, who I just talked about, at 23, maybe in a trade back. But I'll tell you what, if you added a day 2 pick, if you somehow like moved down from say 23 to 28 and added a day 2 pick, if that extra day 2 pick was Sweat, that's a really nice pick. That's a really nice pick.
Yeah, no, for sure. I really like the kid. He tested crazy at the combine, so I was just curious what you were thinking about him. The only other question I really had for you is now that we have Joe Mixon and, we're addressing some of the needs. Obviously, I was nervous just like everybody else yesterday. But today I'm a little more, hey, trust the process kind of thing. What else do we need to sign? Like, what other free agents should we be looking at right now?
That's a good question. Good question, Marcus. I'm going to drop you down to the backstage and answer that. So Marcus wants to know, hey, they got Joe Mixon. That was the running back. They've added a couple of other players, defensive tackle / defensive end, Nico Autry, linebacker, Azeez Al-Shire. What else is out there? What else is out there? What else do you want to go chase? So I would look for some safety depth. Continue to add to the safety spot. If you had 5 safeties that you felt good about, and I know people don't feel good about Jimmy Ward and Jalen Petrie, but if they stay healthy, if Ward stays healthy, he's a really nice player. If Petrie can bounce back, learn from his mistakes last year, he should be a nice player. Eric Murray was good when they used him for what they used him for. And then Stewart's a nice backup. If you added a safety to that equation, then I'd be very intrigued by that safety group. They could stand to use another veteran corner. Now, maybe Ford, who they signed, kind of fills that role a little bit, Michael Ford, as that 5th, 6th corner for the team. But your top 3 right now is set. Derek Stingley's at one cornerback spot. Jeff Okuda's at the other cornerback spot. And then Desmond King coming back was a nice surprise. He's your slot corner. If you could add a backup slot corner who also plays special teams, that's something that I would focus on. I could do with another linebacker, like another really solid, impressive linebacker from an availability standpoint. Maybe an older guy, Denzel Perryman-esque, where it's, hey, 1-year deal, $4 or $5 million. Let's see what you got. That would be a guy that I would try to chase from that linebacker spot. Let me see if there's one of those guys there. Not Bobby Wagner, probably not Bobby Wagner, but you want to bet on turning Isaiah Simmons into a good player? Oh, be my guest. Be my guest. Josie Jewell's a guy that could be a nice depth player. Somebody mentioned the Gay linebacker, Willie Gay Jr., as it took me a second to kind of process that he's a free agent. He's maybe a little bit more expensive than what you would want from a backup depth piece at linebacker. It's worth noting their key backup is Henry To'o at linebacker. They still have Jake Hansen on the roster as well. So they've got 4 linebackers with Azeez Al-Shire. So they got a little depth to that. Defensive line, you could use more defensive linemen. You could get a defensive tackle to start next to Malik Collins. That's probably the number 1 defensive priority for me, is a defensive tackle to start next to Malik Collins. Maybe that's Eric Armstead. Maybe that's a couple of other names. But that's who DJ Reader, Texans fans know him, but somebody to start next to Malik Collins is what I would think they would hope to check off next. So that's how I'd stack it. And then, maybe a wide receiver, but Noah Brown coming back probably takes you out of the wide receiver conversation. Sid wants to weigh in. Sid, what do you got for us?
Hey, Cody, doing a fantastic job, man. I got a question. I wanted Saquon because I feel like he's kind of McCaffrey-ish a little bit, and I feel like in this offense you need catch and run gashers. I felt like Saquon has that elite burst, and I don't know, Joe Mixon, you could call it the same in the same level. Also, what do you think about the second cornerback position? You think they'll draft somebody and will be ready to go, or you think they'll sign like a Javi and Howard, second running back? You think they'll get Sheldon Rankins back? A lot of unknown.
Yeah, good question, Sid. I think if they could draft somebody to compete with Okudah right away, they will. If Quinyon Mitchell is there at 23 in the first round, he's better than Okudah. Like he would play right away. He's that good. Same with Terrion Arnold. Now maybe if it's Kool-Aid McKinstry, if it's Cooper DeJean, if it's Nate Wiggins, maybe they need a little seasoning. They push Okudah, a couple weeks into the regular season. But yeah, I fully believe they're going to draft some cornerback help and hope that guy overtakes Okudah by the end of the year. You talked about defensive tackle. Sheldon Rankins would not be a bad guy to bring back, especially if you felt like, hey, we don't want to rely on the draft for our starting defensive tackle next to Collins. We'll bring Rankins back one more year, and then it's Collins, Rankins, Davis, Heinisch. McTelvin Agam is a guy that they added in the offseason here. So there's some options.
Who would you rather have, Armstead or Rankins?
Armstead, yeah. He's more expensive, but Armstead, he's got a ton of playoff success. And just the way 49ers players talk about Armstead, he would be a really fun addition to that defensive line room that kind of needs that big personality veteran in there. I mean, I don't know exactly what Danico Autry is. I know the Titans are not happy that he's gone and is on the Texans, but Jerry Hughes was sort of that old veteran who'd been around everything and had a little bit of playoff experience here and there. I mean, Armstead's got a ton of 12 playoff games. I think 8 sacks in those 12 playoff games. Played in some Super Bowls. Like, that's a guy that can really sort of still do it at a pretty high level and then impart some wisdom on the young guys as well.
Cool. Thank you so much, man. Appreciate it.
Sid, appreciate you jumping in. Good stuff. Austin McGinnis, Texans suck. No, they don't. You're going in timeout, sir. Put you in timeout. Magnificent Merker. Jonathan Brooks or Trey Benson in round 2. So Brooks is the UT running back coming off of a serious knee injury. I don't believe he's going to be ready. I know he's saying he's going to be ready, but I don't believe he's going to be ready. And then Benson is the Florida State running back, tested through the roof at the combine and got people to kind of go back and look at Florida State again. And people really like him. So Aaron Wilson's reporting that in addition to the Panthers and the Saints, Chase Young is going to visit the Tennessee Titans. I know that somebody in the chat just said that. But that's kind of a jokey timeout. I try not to be super restrictive of the commentary. If you're talking football, let's have some fun. That was kind of a jokey one. Chase Young to the Titans. Okay. I mean, he's not getting past Laramie Tunsil or Titus Howard. Chase Young's got to go somewhere we can rebuild his value. I don't know that anybody's going to pay him a long-term contract or pay him some sort of fun big extension. But 1-year deal, like $8 to $12 million, rebuild the value, hit free agency next year and try to get a big contract. Absolutely, Chase Young's worth that kind of investment for the Panthers, the Saints, the Titans, and even the Texans. I must Pandeline. Is Derek Barnett still under contract? He is a free agent. I know there's been a thought about bringing him back, be a nice depth piece for the defensive end spot. So, again, from a defensive end standpoint for the Texans, you've got Will Anderson and you've got Danico Autry. Your backups are Majai Sanders and Ollie Gay. So Ollie Gay was a practice squad player the entirety of last year. Majai Sanders is sort of undersized, played a little bit. He's part of the rotation. Dylan Horton is potentially a rotation guy for you, but we don't know what the situation is about when he's coming back to football. Obviously, yesterday, in remission from his cancer diagnosis, that was great news to see pop up, but we don't know exactly when he's going to be a factor for the football team. I know he said he wants to get back to football. So if they know and they can count on him, that's one way to approach it. If they don't know, then they kind of got to go about filling out some depth pieces. I would be, unless you're getting Bosa or Mack or Daniil Hunter, I'd be hesitant to sign a guy that feels like he has to start no matter what, because you just have some flexibility with that first round pick about what you can do. You can go 23 defensive end. You can go 23 defensive tackle. Armstead, part of a rotation in San Fran a couple of different times, so it's not the worst thing in the world if your defensive tackle room is, say, Collins, Armstead, and Byron Murphy. Like, you'll figure it out. If you'll figure out a way to do it, Armstead could bump out and play in for you if he had to. So there's a lot of different ways you can approach that defensive end depth. But Barnett's a player that played really well. He made a little bit more money than I think people thought last year, but Barnett's a guy that is not a bad depth piece. Dietology with the super chat. Appreciate you. Thoughts on Xavier Howard and player designed unis? I would tell you Okudah keeps them from signing Howard. Okudah keeps them from signing Howard. Howard's going to want to start. Okudah's going to want to start as well. Howard's better than Okudah. Okudah's got maybe some untapped potential that the coaching staff could take him to maybe a new level. And then with the unis, again, I think some news will start trickling out about the unis here pretty soon. Stevie wants to weigh in. What do you got for us, Stevie?
Hey, man, what's up? So this is like my second time watching your show, man. I really, really enjoy it. It's pretty dope. Texan fan here in San Antonio. But my question is this. What do you think our biggest needs are right now as far as offensive-wise?
Yeah, you could use a wide receiver 3 that you feel good about. Because right now, if they had a wide receiver 3, it'd be Noah Brown. And I don't know that anybody's super comfortable with that. You need another running back with Joe Mixon, somebody who's either just a full-on thumper, short yardage guy, or someone who's way more dynamic, like a pass catching, maybe doesn't run between the tackles as well as Mixon does. And outside of that, I mean, if you saw a veteran tight end that you liked, maybe. But Schultz is obviously the starter. Brevin Jordan's still under contract. He had a couple nice moments there towards the back end of the year. Tegan Quintiriano is a total question mark. He's never stayed healthy in his NFL career, so you can't count on him. So if you saw a veteran that you thought could push Quintiriano, maybe you add him in there. And then offensive line, I'm not spending anything in significant on the offensive line. They've got 3 spots locked up. Now, I will say this. If you see the right tackle for the right money for the swing tackle spot for your backup left tackle, backup right tackle, like go get that guy, because Titus Howard has an injury history. Laramie Tunsil's got an injury history. Right. So having that 6th offensive lineman, that swing tackle, be a good player is certainly something that you could focus on. If George Fant will come back, like I would love George Fant back as the swing tackle. Like that's one of the best swing tackles in football. I just feel like somebody's going to pay George Fant to be a starter somewhere, so he may not be back. So that's kind of where I'd go. If I was putting them in order, I'd say wide receiver 3, backup running back for Mixon, swing tackle, and then a little bit of help at tight end if you find it.
I know y'all mentioned Justin Jefferson earlier, right? Would you agree? Do you think it would be a good idea to trade a first-round pick for Jefferson? I mean, I think, in my opinion, he's better than Nico Collins.
It's it's just not it's not just a first rounder for him. I just don't. I'd be afraid. I think it's probably two first rounders and some additional compensation. So it gets, if they were just a Justin Jefferson away, I'm like, yes, do it. But they're not just a Justin Jefferson away.
Right.
And I do wonder if a team like the Texans looks at the Kansas City Chiefs and they say, we don't need great wide receivers. We need really good wide receivers that we trust. And while Nico, I don't know that is ever going to be a great wide receiver, if he's a really good wide receiver for you, and he and Tank Dell and maybe a rookie as the wide receiver 3 and start to kind of fill out the wide receiver room that way, like if that works out for you, it works for the Chiefs. It's a copycat league. People are going to try to copycat that. And so I don't see them spending the big money on Jefferson, because once you trade for him, after you trade multiple firsts and then some, you got to make him the highest paid wide receiver in the history of football. So I don't see it.
All right, cool, man. I appreciate you adding me, man. I love the show. It's pretty awesome, man. And take care.
Thank you, Stevie. Good stuff. Good stuff from Stevie. Good questions. Appreciate you guys jumping in as well. What position would Landry Locker play in the NFL? Landry Locker, one of my best friends in the entire world. Of course, the host of the Locker Room here on YouTube. Landry Locker would play water boy. He's the guy that would run over the players and he'd squirt the water into their face masks when they needed him. I think he played football in high school. I think he played wide receiver, which makes sense because he's enormous. And probably did a little probably didn't do a lot of blocking because he's tall, but he's a very thin human being. I think he played high school football with Henry Melton, the old Bears defensive tackle and Texas defensive tackle. I think he played football with him. You'll have to ask him next time he's on. But yeah, he played water boy. And I guess if he didn't play water boy and he had to play actual position, put him at wide receiver and just hope that he can beat the guy off the line. That's the JM. Do you think the Texans are out on Calvin Ridley? So we talked about Calvin Ridley yesterday. The Texans checked in on him, according to a friend of mine, Mio O'Brien, who covers the Jaguars down in Jacksonville. And Calvin Ridley is reportedly down to the New England Patriots and the Jacksonville Jaguars. So, yes, the Texans are likely out on Calvin Ridley at this point. How do you feel about Mixon coming to the Texans for a 7th rounder? It's totally fine. I think the official compensation is not out there yet. I know there's some rumors about it. That's totally fine. 2nd round of the draft is good. Gold mine of value. Trade back from the 1st, trade up from the 3rd. Darius Robinson, Trey Benson, and then either best corner or wide receiver available. Yeah, well, I like that. I don't love getting all the way out of the 1st round because you lose that 5th-year option, but it is certainly a dense talent pool from sort of 20 to 60. And if you could add a pick in that range by moving back from 23, it's worth a consideration. Do you remember the time Bobby Shea showed up at halftime the Mud Dogs won the Super Bowl? Of course I do. I'm cutting glass in here. Let's see. Is it still feasible to sign Derrick Henry? It is not. He is on the Baltimore Ravens. Josh Reynolds. A lot of Josh Reynolds love here in the chat. Josh Reynolds for wide receiver 3. Primarily an outside guy. Let me look real quick and see if he's got any sort of slot stuff. I don't think he's very slotty. The big thing about the Texans wide receivers is Nico Collins can play inside outside. Tank Dell can play inside outside. Noah Brown can play inside outside. Robert Woods can play inside outside. John Mechie can play inside outside. Xavier Hutchinson's probably one of the only outside only guys, but even then he's dumped into the slot a little bit. They like having guys that can do both. So trying to find a guy You don't have to have that, but it's probably something that is a big bonus for them. Okay, so he lined up out wide 700 times, and then he lined up in the slot 300 times. So, so pretty good amount of work at wide receiver, out wide, but not impossible to put him in the slot. So, fine player. Lonnie Brumley Jr. with a super chat. Thank you, Lonnie. If they do extend Collins, do you think they draft a wide receiver later in the draft rather than soon? I don't believe Collins' extension drastically affects the wide receiver range that they would go. I will say, I do feel like at 23, not moving around, it seems unlikely to me that they would spend a draft pick on the wide receiver, because as good as these guys are, neither of them are walking in day one better than Tank Dell and Nico Collins. So you're drafting wide receiver 3 with the 23rd overall pick. It becomes a lot easier to understand wide receiver 3 with, say, the second round pick. If Roman Wilson was there or Lad McConkey was there at 59, becomes easier to understand with 59 than 23. And certainly with Nico Collins' extension, maybe it bumps it around. Maybe you go from a second round to a third round. But if the player is good and the player is there, Lonnie, they're going to draft that guy. So I appreciate Lonnie with the super chat. Dietology wants to know Matt Breida or Damian Harris as running back 2. Breida spent a pretty good amount of time there as a backup running back, so a little experience. You didn't get one Giants running back, so you get the other one. Damian Harris, thumper. Played for New England originally, was with Buffalo this past year, stunk. I like Harris a little bit more than that. He'd be a nice addition. It's important to add depth pieces that are cuttable if a rookie outplays them in training camp. And Harris could be one of those guys. If Harris comes in, he's the thumper. They draft some rookie or they sign some undrafted free agent. That guy has a great camp. You can get rid of Harris. Don't make any sort of big investment. Dietology, appreciate you jumping in. Johnny wants to weigh in. Johnny, what do you got, my man?
How you feeling?
I feel pretty good. Obviously, super slow start.
Marathon yesterday.
Yeah. It was super slow start. It kind of was like, okay, what are we doing here? And then once the disappointment hit, you kind of rode the disappointment wave.
Yeah. It was awesome to have you kind of live streaming at the same time. I had my laptop up. I was following Twitter. I was following Shefty. I was following Ian Rappaport. It was cool to see you live stream for, was it like over 6 hours?
6 hours, 11 minutes, and 11 seconds was the official time.
Dude, you put in the work. Mad props.
Yeah. Thank you, man. Thank you. It was fun. It was easy. The chat was great. We had a lot of people in here. People jumping on. It was fun.
Yeah, no, it was a good time, man. All right, I'm gonna do a little game with you. Did we upgrade after day 1? And even into day 2, we'll go there. Did the Houston Texans upgrade on their roster? So I'm going to start with cornerback. So they signed I'm going to screw his name up.
Jeff Okudah.
Okudah. All right, Okudah versus Steven Nelson. Upgrade or no?
Downgrade.
Steven
Nelson was one of the best players on the Texans to start the season last year. He got hurt. The play kind of dropped off there towards the end, but Nelson was awesome last year.
Yeah, the only negative thing I had against Nelson was his little weird comment he had about Nick Caserio, but he played great throughout the season, and he ended a lot of games that we needed to win. So I'm with you on that one. This one's Townsend versus Cameron Johnston.
Townsend was an All-Pro in 2022.
Yeah.
Johnston was a little bit better than him statistically last year. I'm gonna say push. I don't know that. I literally can't tell you. Right? I can't. Statistically, Johnston was better last year. But Townsend has a All-Pro to his name, so I'm gonna say push. Maybe slight edge Johnston because he was good last year. But no upgrade, no downgrade, I would say.
Here's an interesting question. Does Townsend have the ability to kick field goals?
I will find out the answer to that.
Because
just in case Kaimi gets hurt.
Yeah. If Kaimi gets hurt, like, do we have Townsend or do we need to bring back the Swiss Army knife?
That's a great question that I will find out the answer to that.
Because I heard Pat McAfee was talking about it whenever that happened. He was talking about how, Australian kickers don't kick off the ground.
Yes.
So, it wasn't his fault. And Cam Johnston's sitting on the sideline telling Dare how to kick a field goal. And everybody on the internet went nuts. And they're like, why is the guy who kicks a ball for a living telling a running back how to kick a football? And it was hysterical.
Yeah.
So that one, I don't know that I'm going to move up a little bit. All right. So, Autry versus Grenard.
Slight downgrade, but Autry's not the only thing they're going to do at end.
I hope not.
And that's worth noting. I mean, he had 2 less sacks than Grenard last year.
He did. That was his greatest year he's had in last 5 seasons?
Yeah, he had 2 less sacks for a much worse team where he was one of the, he spent a lot of the season as one of the only real pass rush threats they had. So
yeah.
It's not –
it seemed like Tennessee players were pretty upset to see him go.
Jeffrey Simmons, the defensive tackle for the Titans, tweeted about it. Yeah.
Yeah. So that one they're going to need somebody. Same thing with the running back room. We'll get into that in a second. So cornerback, or linebacker, Al-Shaair versus Cashman.
Al-Shaair is way better. He's way better than Cashman.
I agree.
Way better.
I think Cashman cashed in, man, and rightfully.
It's got to be a dream for him. I mean, he played at Minnesota. He's from there. I don't know for a fact, but I have to imagine that he grew up a Vikings fan, and now he makes $1 trillion more than I think most people ever expected him to make. And he plays for the team that he probably grew up rooting for. It's got to be great for him.
And he gets to go back with Grenard.
Yeah.
So we'll have a little familiarity there. All right. Mixon versus Singletary. Is that an upgrade?
Upgrade.
I think so too.
Upgrade. It's just, I mean, he's a 1,000-yard rusher and he can catch the ball. He had a more productive year than
four seasons. So he came out of the draft in 2017.
Sounds about right.
And I think he had second
round pick in 2017.
That's right. And he's had four over 1,000-yard seasons. Great pass catcher in the backfield. I think he gives an element to CJ that we needed. Devin Singletary was nice. I would have loved for Mixon and Singletary to have both been here.
Oh yeah, that would have
been like I'm good on running back. I'm fine. We all know Dameon Pierce is just not. I don't know what happened last year. The scheme just apparently was a problem for him.
Yes,
and
had a tough time figuring out what to do with.
He just ran into his own offensive lineman so many times. Like it was ridiculous to watch.
Yeah.
But I think Mixon's an upgrade. I'm fine with Mixon. And shout out to your boy Landry. Free agency isn't always done in just the first day.
Look, I was nervous too, so I can't, I've done this 2 years in a row now to Nick Caserio where like, hey, first day, not fun. By the end of the second day, I'm like, pretty good.
I threw my pen against the wall just like you did whenever Saquon got signed.
I went back. I had to download the show to get it off of the program that I used to stream because it was taking up so much. It was 8 gigabytes, the 6-hour stream. So I pulled it off. I threw it in my video editing. I was like, let's go see the Saquon thing. And it was funny because I started talking about Brandon Ayuk and then I saw it and I was like, oh no. So
yeah, it happened all at once.
I found that pin too much of your time this morning. I was like, oh, there's the pin. It flew across the room. Johnny, I appreciate you jumping in, man. Good stuff.
Appreciate it, brother.
Good stuff from Johnny. Zach Rose with the super chat. Zach, I appreciate you with the super chat. Bring back Deontay Foreman as running back too. I'm down for it. I don't think there's a lot of bad options at running back. When it comes to bringing in competition for Pierce, backup for Mixon because Mixon's number one. All right. How would you guys like it if the Houston Texans signed one of the biggest free agents in all of free agency that's left right now? How would you like it? I would like it. Well, Aaron Wilson from KPRC moments ago tweeted this. There's mutual interest between the Texans and Vikings Pro Bowl free agent defensive end Danielle Hunter, per league sources, but nothing imminent. Fluid situation. Multiple NFL teams are intrigued by Morton Ranch grad coming off 16.5 sack year, has 87.5 career sacks. Mutual interest between Danielle Hunter and the Houston Texans. I mean, come on. Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson at the end spots? Well, how do you stop them? How do you stop them? I like Jose. I'm done with mutual interest. I've had mutual interest in Margot Robbie for a long time. Good luck trying to figure out if she's got mutual interest in me. JM, do not get my hopes up. I mean, the hopes are up. The hopes are up, man. I do not know what Danielle Hunter would cost. Let's go to Spot Rack and see what his projection is. I do not know what Danielle Hunter would cost. It would not be cheap. I'll tell you that much. It would not be cheap. Now, the Spot Rack projection for him is $20 million a year. $20 million a year for 3 years. Maybe a little bit less than that. Just made 17 a year for the Vikings. So now that's best case scenario, $20 million a year. If he's coming in, you're checking in with him on day 2 and stuff's kind of hitting the fan and he's not getting what he wants or what he needs from that standpoint, maybe all of a sudden it's not 20. Maybe all of a sudden it's 15. Maybe all of a sudden it's 14. Maybe all of a sudden it's a 1-year deal where you can sort of manipulate the money with some void years. So, man. JM says, we signed Autry. Don't they play the same position? Well, they rotate defensive linemen. So they play 7 to 8 defensive linemen per game. So you can put Hunter on the field and Autry because Autry plays a little bit of defensive tackle as well. But I mean, I would feel pretty good about this free agency class if they ended up with Danielle Hunter. If they ended up with Danielle Hunter, I'd feel pretty good. Aaron Wilson just reported on Danielle Hunter. Yes, he did. Casario won't sign him. He's bargain shopping at Joe V's instead of shopping at HEB. I don't know. Is Danielle Hunter kind of like a Trader Joe's? Like, maybe it's a little bit more expensive than I want, but it's ready right now. It's ready right now. Noah, the swarming would be next level. Yes. Yes, it would. Christian S. says, I'd do it. That's Grenard money, but he's better. He is better than Jonathan Grenard. He is more productive than Grenard. He is healthier in his career than Jonathan Grenard. I don't believe he costs $20 million because it's day two of free agency, and it has not shaken out probably the way he wants it to. I don't believe he is going to cost $20 million a year. Collectibles. Is Luvu still on the table? No, he is not. He signed with the commies. Jamie, should we trade Mills? If there was a market for him, I guess. If there was a market for him, I guess you'd trade him, but is there a market for Davis Mills? They have 4 quarterbacks. They'll keep 3. Hold on. Somebody just tweeted a Troy Franklin highlight, and I need to watch it. Okay, he's so fast. Over the shoulder, makes it look easy. Bo Nix dropped it in. Yeah, that's a good job. I still like Troy Franklin. Didn't run as fast as people thought he was going to at the combine, but I still really like Troy Franklin from Oregon. All right, we're back to Danielle Hunter here. So Danielle Hunter, man, I don't know if the long-term commitment to Hunter is the smartest move, but if you got, say, a 2-year commitment from him and the money was kind of focused on this year, you would have a really, really nasty, nasty, nasty pass rush, man. Really nasty. Is Keenum still rostered? Yes. BVB, I don't understand the mindset of waiting and trying to win. You got the resource to build a better team now. Too many injuries in the NFL to wait. Sure. I will tell you this, an investment in Danielle Hunter definitely changes your ability to do some of the other things that you'd want to do maybe in free agency, and it pushes a lot of stuff towards the draft. P Nasty. Sorry, Cody, just tuning in. Can you recap the Mixon deal? Looks like a $2 million 1-year rental for a late round pick. Is Mixon better than Singletary? I don't think he's worse. He's better than Singletary. They're going to pay him the salary this year that's cheaper than just about anybody else that signed. So they felt more comfortable about that from a financial standpoint. So that's something that's good for the Texans. And yeah, he's better than Devin Singletary. He's better than Devin Singletary. Okay. All right. You saw it there. We're going to get you a little underdog break here in just a second. Shoots needs to sleep, bro. He's looking rough. I did stay up a little bit later than I wanted to last night and did not sleep as well as I wanted to. But the stream and free agency gives me energy. I'm good to go. My friends over at AD Sports, Athletically Declined Sports, go check them out here on YouTube. They do a ton of content. They cover anything and everything. They do a lot of fun stuff. Entertaining crew. Check them out here on YouTube. Athletically Declined Sports. Good crew over there. My guy Jet Boyer, probably not happy with Jet's free agency. Rough. They had all their fun last year. Danielle Hunter, Malik Collins, Danico Autry, and Will Anderson would be filthy. That's your pass rush. That's your pass rush down right there. So that would be nasty. That would be nasty. I would very much enjoy that. Very much enjoy that. Jack says, first time watching, are you a Texans fan? Okay, so this is a good question. For those who don't know who I am or what I do, grew up in Houston. I'm from Houston, former Texans season ticket holder. I am a Texans fan, but I also cover the Houston Texans for my own website, Houston Football, as well as here on YouTube. I've been a credentialed media member covering the Texans since I got back to Houston from school in 2024 or 2014. So I've covered the Texans previously as a beat writer, as a radio host, now back to the beat, covering them. So credentialed media, I give it to you straight. So the Texans are my team. That's who I root for in my fandom. I don't let my fandom cloud how I approach things. I call it like I see it. They do well, they do well. They do bad, they do bad. I call it like I see it. But yeah, credentialed media member. I'm there at everything that they have now that I left radio and I do this full time. So that's a little background on me. Not that anybody totally cares, and I think a lot of people are familiar. But let's get to some of the comments in just a second, but some videos want to jump in. Austin wants to jump in. Austin, what do you got for me, man?
Hey, what's up?
What's up, man?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Cincinnati Bengals.
Yeah.
I'm going to make him back. So, yeah, any chance to get him back by anytime soon?
Yeah, but look, the Texans got him for this year. Maybe he hits free agency, they bring him back. But yeah, we appreciate the Bengals trading Mixon down here.
I understand, but it's football. I need him back.
All right, Austin, I appreciate you jumping in, man. Thank you. Good stuff from Austin. He wants Joe Mixon back. I bet there's a lot of Bengals fans that want him back. So Mixon's better than Zach Moss. Mixon's better than Zach Moss. But he was more expensive, so they moved on from him. Look, we're still looking for the official compensation there. Late round pick, probably. Speaking of Jet Boyer, hello.
What up, Stootsy?
What's up, man? How you doing?
Hey, man, good. It's been a freaking crazy 2 days for football.
Yeah.
Want to hear your thoughts on the Vikings. if you had to pick right now, like who are the biggest winners of free agency for me? I've been looking at Minnesota, Atlanta. I think there's a case to be made for the Eagles.
The Eagles for sure. They go out there and get exactly what they want.
Mm-hmm.
So I like that. Atlanta, absolutely, because they got the best quarterback on the market when they needed a quarterback.
Yep.
And the Vikings are a winner. The Vikings are losers. Sam Darnold's their quarterback.
Oh, come on.
Sam Darnold's their quarterback. He's terrible.
Okay. Are we 100% going to go ahead and label Sam Darnold as being completely terrible? The reason I'm just, and again, playing devil's advocate here. We thought the same thing. We were out on Baker. A lot of people out on Baker. Baker resurrects his career.
Don't do it, Jet. Don't do it. He's not good. He's not good at football. I know you're a Jets guy, and I know there's some deep love for Sam Darnold. He sucks at football.
I wish there wasn't, but hey, the good thing is though, I feel like they did address some holes, whether or not Sam Darnold's that guy. I mean, you're sitting there at 12. Do you think that a team like the Vikings are going to be in play to trade up? I mean, you're right outside of that threshold, and as we know, jumping into top 10 from a 12, that's a substantial jump if people don't realize.
They are. I would tell you they're squarely focused on JJ McCarthy.
Yeah,
that's
what I figured.
Yeah,
so
which is great. Like I want more. The more quarterbacks that go,
mm-hmm.
the more quarterbacks that. Oh my God, I saw Dante Fowler, and for some reason I thought that was Daniil Hunter. I was like, no. Dante Fowler, the Commanders. Not that it matters a ton,
right.
But the more quarterbacks that go and offensive linemen that go up top in this draft, it pushes good players down to teams in the 20s.
You're seeing Brock Bowers. I mean, in latest mocks, like he's dropping outside of in the 12. I think he's slotted at 15 now. So yeah, definitely good. Keep killing it, Stootsy. We love you.
Jet, appreciate you. I want everybody to know that Austin's in the private chat. Let me know. Still wants Joe Mixon back. He dropped a hooday on me, and he said that he wants picks back with him too. So, Austin, I can't get Joe Mixon back for you, man. I'm sorry. That's Austin McGinnis. Austin T wants to weigh in. What's up, Austin?
Hey, what's good, Stootsy? How's it going, bro?
Doing good, man. Going good. What you got for me?
I don't have like a question, but I am just a little bit I'm kind of questioning what Nick's like philosophy is going into the off season. I see a lot of lateral moves, and he's getting older at the same time. So I definitely didn't agree with the previous dude who's saying the Vikings are winners. I mean, they overspent on their contracts, but they did get younger in doing that. So anyways, I kind of wanted your thoughts on what you think his philosophy is. Obviously, we know he's not going to go out there on a limb and be the first in line to go pay for anybody. But at the same time, I guess he's kind of just waiting around to see if anybody will bring their asking price down. So what have you. So what do you think?
He is beholden to what they believe the value of a player is. And they do not want to go past what they think a guy is worth from a free agent commitment standpoint. He also is, I think, very scared to long-term commit a lot of money.
Yeah.
And I say scared in that he hasn't done it when there's probably some justifiable moments to do it. But at the same time, it's also part of the strategy in the process. If they operate in smaller increments, they get that money back and they're able to reinvest that money in the team. He hasn't had anybody that's worth spending a big re-sign contract on in his time as general manager. Like he's brought back Malik Collins a couple of different times, but like Collins is not some sort of just like, oh, you got to have Malik Collins back. Like that's hey, that's a nice player. We're going to keep him around. But like Nico Collins is probably the first player to show up where it's like, hey, 4-year commitment, big money, let's re-sign him. And I feel like that's something that they're going to prioritize is they're going to get their guys in the building. They're going to pay their guys. It's what the Chiefs do. The Chiefs get their guys in the building. They pay their guys, they backfill it with rookies, and they draft really well. And Caserio is going to try to do the same thing. They're going to get their guys in the building, the guys that they feel like they have to keep, they're going to pay them, and they're going to backfill a lot of that with rookies and bargain free agents. And they're just really not going to spend a lot of money in free agency long term. They may have a big pop, like I think Dalton Schultz last year turning into a bargain for them at, just over $6 million. Like if a player turns into a bargain for them, gets into their range, they're going to do that. But I am a little surprised that they weren't a tiny bit more aggressive on a player here or there, because if DeMeco Ryans wants those guys, he can tell Nick Caserio, go get that player for me. But that's a part of like the meshing of DeMeco Ryans' approach left over from San Francisco, which we think is kind of his approach. And then, Nick Caserio's approach. And look, if they were, the 49ers thought they were a Hargrave away last year, they went and got Hargrave. If the Texans were a Wilkins away, I bet you Christian Wilkins would be on the Texans. But they're not a Christian Wilkins away. They're not a one-player away situation right now.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, for sure. I think you're a lot more of a realist when it comes to understanding where the Texans are in contention, right? And so those kind of pushing all your chips into the table like that doesn't make sense for right now. But on the other hand, I feel like it's becoming increasingly frustrating to have to rely on DeMeco to go get those guys. I feel like if DeMeco's not in the room, then Caserio is really having a problem getting on the same page of value with these players, right? Especially younger players. I mean, Daniel Hunter. That's why you keep seeing these reports coming out that nothing is imminent, almost in any other report coming from related to the Texans, and it's probably because of the price point.
Yeah.
Right. And that's why they don't want to commit to anything. So I'm just a little concerned on, having to rely on DeMeco when that should be your GM pulling these strings and having these tactics and negotiations to help a player understand his value and where the trajectory of the value might be going, but also saying, hey, but we understand you can do X, Y, and Z in the locker room and give them some pros and some positivity behind the justification. So I'm just a little, kind of baffled by Nick's. I don't know if he's got good negotiation skills or not when it comes to free agency, in my opinion. Yeah.
I think DeMeco probably sets the market for some of these guys for what the Texans are comfortable with. Now, the running back one is different. Like how Bobby, I don't know how Bobby Slowick's not sitting in that room with everybody, like banging on the table trying to get one of these running backs. Now, they end up with Mixon, who's a nice player, but there was a moment there where it's like, oh crap, the Texans aren't going to have a running back to go get. But when the Texans reportedly offer Patrick Queen $10 million a year and then sign Azeez Al-Shire to a contract that's more than $11 million a year, it's like that's DeMeco Ryans telling the Texans, no, that guy's only worth that much, and this guy's worth that much. Like that's Ryan setting the market. Like that's his spot. That's linebacker.
That's very reassuring. Then that you got two sets of eyes on that thing.
Yeah. So what else you got for me, Austin?
Well, I guess my other last thing before I let you go would be just kind of like I feel like I'm a little concerned on the lack of just overall team speed right now. I don't see us really addressing. Obviously, we like to put our guys in space in the scheme, and I don't know with Mixon being added that's still a good scheme fit for the outside zone scheme. I don't know. I saw Underdog guys, Hayden and Josh, talking about how they actually see us deploying Mixon as a more of an inside zone runner in the scheme coming up, and that's what they saw him have success with last year, given the inconsistencies on the offensive line in Cincinnati. So, just like kind of my concerns are just like I'm a little I'm not sure we have that much closure on what the scheme's going to be with getting a guy like Mixon. I don't think he's got the speed necessarily to succeed in the outside zone. And it's like, I wonder what else we can do to kind of get some team speed. Obviously, get Brian Thomas would be a one-stop shop for a solution on that. I don't know if that's the wisest move, getting Brian Thomas. I don't think he's going to be there at 2023. It's going to be a trade-up for sure for him. But why do you think we address team speed on the offense particularly?
Yeah, speed would be a big deal. I mean, there's a lot of fast guys in this wide receiver class, so that's a way you can go about it. There's some fast running backs that could be mid to late round picks, so that's a way you can go about it as well. They need a special teams guy. I don't really want Tank doing special teams, so they need a special teams returner. Maybe you focus on a late round wide receiver to kind of bring in as that return guy, or a late round running back who's got some return experience, or if one of these corners is fast that can return, that's another way to approach it too. They could get faster. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Gosh, who is the returner right now? Is it Damian? Like, I don't even know who the returner would be.
I mean, look, Des King's done it a little bit.
Yeah.
Obviously Damian had the touchdown last year. Mechie's not a return guy. They had Hutchinson do it a couple of times. So they need a return guy. I got to look. I don't think Lonnie Johnson's not a return guy. I don't think the Ford guy from Cleveland's a return guy either. So while you're here, actually, this is a perfect thing to pop up here because you were asking about it. So Scott Barrett is a guy that's works for Fantasy Points. So concern with Joe Mixon the same as Dameon Pierce, good runner, but not a fit for the outside zone running scheme. So Pierce in man gap concepts better than obviously zone. Same with Mixon in the past couple of seasons, over a yard better. So that was pretty interesting for the Fantasy Points, data suite that Barrett put that together. And then he followed it up with this. Okay, actually, basically Cincinnati's offensive line sucked. And that's why Mixon wasn't good at it. So,
I've seen a couple of guys on Twitter saying, I just don't like his efficiency as a runner. And I'm like, have you seen what they've been dealing with the last 3 or 4 years? I try to address it almost every offseason and something happens with your offensive line.
It'll be a really solid offensive line. I believe that he's
going they've obviously they've really put into it this offseason, I think, and it's going to take some continuity to really take the next step for them. But I'll let you go, man. Last thing for me, I really want Calvin Ridley. I think Ridley would be a perfect fit in the offense to help address team speed, to give his ultimate versatility, which is really confusing me as well. Like, why would he want to go back to freaking Jacksonville as a wide receiver 3 or 4 there when they just signed Gabe and I think they lost Zay Jones, I believe. They don't have Zay Jones anymore.
They signed Devin Duvernay too.
They got Duvernay, but I think that's the Agnew replacement is Duvernay because he can return kicks as well. But so just like, okay, why would Calvin want to go back to either the Patriots or it's all money, obviously, right? But I'm like,
and Trevor Lawrence wants Ridley back bad.
Yeah, and they're gonna have to give a second round pick to get him back, right? So
there is something associated with like an additional compensation if they resign him or something.
It's a second, I'm pretty sure if they resign him. So that's obviously a big deal. But that's the guy I think would be the perfect fit because he needs so much separation in the offense, and he's a perfect insurance plan as a wide receiver 2 who can be a spot fill wide receiver 1 in my opinion, just because he can separate. And he was rusty last year, so I just feel like there's not much room for downside. So I would pay him easily $14 million a year right now for 2 or 3 years.
They checked in on him, and it seems like he's down to the Pats and the Jags. So
they did check in on him though.
Yeah,
okay,
that
makes me feel better at least. Okay. All right, Stootsy, man, you're the best, dude. I appreciate you and Landry always grinding it out each and every night. So thanks for the content, and hopefully I'll catch you guys at Drift or one of the. I don't know if you're still doing, probably going to Drift or anything like that for work or anything like that. But I want to bump into you guys soon. So hope you have a good rest of the week, and I'll stay in tune with you guys.
You never know. Appreciate it, Austin. Good stuff. Good stuff. How about a little vest on vest crime there from Austin and Nick Casario? Okay, Nick Casario, vest guy. Austin, a vest guy. Vest on vest crime there. He did mention Underdog Fantasy, and I'll get to some of these comments here in just a second. But he did mention Underdog Fantasy. My friends at Underdog Fantasy, it's the best way to play fantasy. It's a link in the description down below. You get signed up, you get 2 times your initial deposit at Underdog Fantasy. Your first time signing up, you get 2 times your first deposit up to $100. Put in 20, play with 40. Put in 50, play with 100. My buddy Matt in Dallas did it. Put in $20. Next thing you know, up over 100. Underdog Fantasy, super easy. It is the Pick'em format. Great way to play fantasy sports. You're like, oh, there's no football going on right now, Cody. Basketball, hockey. This Nate McKinnon fella for Colorado, higher on 1.5 points for him every night. Basically every night I put him in to one of these Pick'em entries. Yeah, turn $5 into 10, turn $5 into $100 when you 20 times your entry. Heck, they've even got scorchers that can turn your entry into 100 times. Underdog Fantasy, the best way to fantasy. Link in the description down below. And they want you to game responsibly. A little bit more about Underdog Fantasy right here while I run to the restroom. And we're back. Underdog Fantasy, the best way to play fantasy. Appreciate everybody sticking around, hanging out. All right. Any big moves? Shake up? Nothing, huh? Commanders got Dante Fowler. Chase Young's making visits. Kind of slowed down here a little bit on the move standpoint. 5 teams have not signed an outside free agent. The Cowboys, the Saints, the Seahawks, the Colts, and the Buccaneers. Yikes. Yikes. Had to go to the bathroom. How am I a slime ball? Had to go to the bathroom. What do you want me to do? Landry locker? Or the locker room? Okay, a couple comments here. Hollywood Brown, Cody? We just talked about team speed. Hollywood Brown, if the market starts to dip and dip and dip and dip and dip, and Hollywood Brown would be a fantastic addition. 1-year deal, 1 year with a low commitment next year. Take the top off the defense. He brings an element of speed that Tank Dell and Nico Collins don't bring. Yeah, absolutely Hollywood if the money comes down. Yeah, mutual interest, H-Town Swarm, mutual interest. Let me pull up the Aaron Wilson thing one more time here. Make sure everybody sees it. If you haven't seen it, mutual interest between Danielle Hunter and the Houston Texans. According to Aaron Wilson, Pro Bowl free agent defensive end Danielle Hunter. Nothing imminent, fluid situation. Multiple NFL teams are intrigued by Danielle Hunter. And then Aaron gets in the shout out to the local school there. Morgan Mason says Khalil Mack need to trade for him. I don't know if you want to trade for Mack because the contract's weird right now. It's big enough that the Chargers want to get rid of him because he makes so much money. But if you could adjust the contract or you lower it and send a late pick for him, be my guest. It feels like he's going to get cut though, so you may not have to trade for him. Now, of course, if he gets cut, then everybody's competing for him. You trade for him, you lower the value of the contract. Works out that way. Need great play at safety, but if our defense can be better than the Ravens' defense next year, tough task. Defense got to play better, certainly. Tough task. What's the news on Rankins, Cody? Yeah, nothing popping on Sheldon Rankins just yet. Nobody's interested. He's kind of a second, third wave type guy. Second, third wave type guy. Teams miss out on their top spots at defensive tackle. He might even, I hope this isn't the case for Sheldon, but he might even be a guy that closer to draft time or after draft time, that's where he finds his opportunity. No way you washed your hands. Yeah, that's why I used the Bath and Body Works antibacterial hand spray. Come on now. Stootsy asked Underdog to set up a draft booth party next year. I'll be there. Okay, all right. We can do some fun stuff with Underdog. When the season gets here, we'll do some drafts on stream, do some season-long drafts on stream, do some fun stuff with Underdog, get you guys involved in it. That'd be fun. Any news on Justin Simmons or Chase Young? Justin Simmons, the safety from the Denver Broncos, who is a free agent after the Broncos released him. No news on him, no movement on him. Safety market's been pretty slow after Savage and McKinney got their deals. And then Chase Young has meetings set up with the Saints, the Carolina Panthers, and the Tennessee Titans. So the Saints, Panthers, and Titans are teams that are interested in Chase Young. He's already taken visits, which means people wanted to talk to him, maybe poke and prod to see how healthy he is. And that's not good for him getting a big-time deal. Not good. Kenny Moore back to the Indianapolis Colts, a 3-year, $30 million deal for him. He's a nice player. Thoughts on drafting Xavier Worthy? Don't want him in the first round. If he's there in the second, it's an easy pick for me. Sarah McCoy, and I know somebody else put this name up there, Isaac Guerrero. I think it's Guerrero, isn't it? I don't know if Sarah spelled it wrong or I'm saying it wrong. But he was fast. Yeah, it's not Guerrero. Guerrendo. Yeah, she spelled it right. I said it wrong. Guerrendo. Super fast at the combine. Super fast. 4.33 speed demon. Do you think the Texans will extend Mixon? No. No, let him play and figure it out at the end of the year. Cody, how do trades work? Does the receiving team take on the contract or reconstruct it? A bunch of different layers to it. Sometimes the team trading them keeps some of the salary. Sometimes the team getting the guy takes everything. You can manipulate it and change it and move it around a couple of different ways. Daniil Hunter would be an excellent addition to that defensive line. You're telling me he'd be awesome. Got a hunch Texans draft Chris Braswell, another Bama guy, Senior Bowl guy. Had some nice performances at the Senior Bowl. Don't remember him testing poorly or testing great at the combine. Solid player, would be a depth player right away. Nick's sitting on his hands waiting for other teams to move instead of moving first. I mean, he went out there and chased a bunch of guys right off the bat, but he went and chased a bunch of guys off the bat, but I put my stream notification on to tweet out for YouTube the wrong time. The time changes messed me up. It went out there and adjusted well after that fact. Thoughts on Cameron Curl? Really solid player. I thought he was going to get overpaid, but I guess now that the market's not jumped on him, he maybe isn't going to get overpaid. Probably not for the Texans with the commitments they already have at safety. Free agency is a cold business. It certainly is. Jordan Whittington, late rounds of the draft, grade down for I spent probably 20 minutes with Jordan Whittington at the draft. And such a fun guy to talk to. Great perspective on life. Really interested to see what his draft stock ends up looking like. He's a guy that's going to make a team and be a camp darling and do it all for a coach. Coaches are going to love him. Avenue Central, Jeff Wilson not available for running back 2. And Jeff Wilson's still on the Dolphins. Now, if the Dolphins want to move off of him for, something small, but Jeff Wilson's still on the Dolphins. They've got Devon Achane, and Raheem Mostert. A little bit of injury concern with the Dolphins' depth, so probably keep Jeff Wilson. It's a pretty nice 1-2-3 from that standpoint. They need some help though in getting cheap production. So maybe a late round pick or a future 5th or something like that. Grimballs, do you like Wendy's? I do. Good spot. Used to love the chili back in the day. And then I was on a big baked potato kick with them for a while. Obviously, the burgers are good. They've changed their fries a couple times over the years, it feels like. Wilmer, thoughts on drafting Cooper DeJean in the first, Frank Gore Jr. in the latter rounds? I would not draft DeJean in the first. Serious knee injury that he's coming back for. Serious leg injury that he's coming back from. Don't know if he's a safety. Don't know if he's a corner. I can't get there on a first-round pick for him. Frank Gore Jr., the name is probably better than the play, but he's not a bad player. Do they know how much it gave up for Mixon? I haven't seen it from any of the big dogs. I know there's some rumors that it's late picks, something like that. I haven't seen it from any of the big dogs just yet. Braylon Allen's one of my favorite players in the draft. He's one of my draft crushes. He's a freak. He's really good. He was good at Wisconsin. He said all the right things at the combine about wanting to be a depth piece and pass blocking, and he's a physical marvel. Like, he is 20 years old, as you mentioned, and he is a monster. He's a monster. Nick Price is right, Casario. That's a good one. I like that. Hi, Cody. I'm home in Texas for vacation. I've missed some free agency news. Has there been any explanation from the Texans as why they didn't pursue the bigger names? I mean, not from the Texans, but the price was just not there, what they wanted to pay. I mean, DJ Bename reporting they offered Patrick Queen $10 million. I mean, Queen ended up getting like a $16 million a year deal. They offered Saquon Barkley $11 million a year. He ended up getting like 12.5 a year. Like, they just stood pat on their price for these guys. I do feel like Devin Singletary got snuck away from them. I do feel like Singletary snuck away from them. And if in a perfect world, they could have had him back. Rick P, go get Darnell Mooney. He can't. He's on the Falcons now. Renee Roca, never stared at a man's face for so long. Well, I mean, I ain't got much else. I don't have any fancy graphics to throw up for you. Still got Motor? Nope, he's on the Giants. D'Angelo, you got some decent dudes, don't get me wrong, but I think we missed out on better personnel. Hopefully we get Devin White, Danielle Hunter, or Justin Simmons. I don't know that they're going to sign Devin White. They kind of committed to their starters at linebacker right now, and then I think they'd kind of go much cheaper for the filling out the rest of the linebacker room. Simmons, I love Simmons. I think he's awesome. I think he's a game changer. They should go get him. And then Danielle Hunter, there's mutual interest, according to Aaron Wilson, KPRC. Mutual interest. Nothing is imminent. Mutual interest. Xavier Howard, probably not with Okuda. A.D. Mitchell in the first, cornerback in the second round. You can do a whole heck of a lot worse than this, man. That'd be a fun one. That would be a fun one. Cody, you hear anything about Joey Bosa? If he becomes available, would you take a flyer on him? Now, if he became available, I wouldn't just take a flyer on him. I would almost prioritize adding him to the equation because he's not going to be expensive. The commitment's not going to be long-term. And I believe either Bosa or Mack is getting cut. I would tell you Harbaugh probably wants to keep one of those two guys, but both of them are on the chopping block, and they may be playing a game of chicken to see who wants to adjust their contract first. Braylon Allen is Derrick Henry light. Braylon Allen's mentor is Derrick Henry, so it's similar. Yeah, it's similar. It's similar. Xavier Worthy did have a little couple drops at Texas. Couple drops. Yeah, Saquon's contract jumps up big if he hits all his incentives. You don't ever hit all the incentives, but Stoots, you know how much money we have left to spend at this point. Let's see what the over the cap number is right now. Over the cap has like 40-ish million. Let's see if they've got all the contracts in. I think they're still putting in a couple of contracts and a couple of details. So like Alshire's in, but it doesn't look like Danico Autry's in just yet. So I'd say around 40 is the number right now, according to Over the Cap. Maybe a little bit less. A little bit less. Who'd you want next in free agency? I mean, Hunter's nice. Simmons, both of those guys would be interesting ones. Can they still afford the Neil Hunter? Absolutely. Absolutely. They got the money. They can make it work. You can manipulate or do stuff like that. Would you rather Bosa or Khalil Mack? I would rather Khalil Mack than Bosa. Just a little bit more consistency and health. A little bit more. Thoughts on trading for Josh Sweat? Josh Sweat is on the Philadelphia Eagles. Nice defensive end. Tough part about like moving on from a guy like if the Eagles, who kind of need pass rushers, are moving on from him, like what's the deal here? You know, what's the issue? They went out and signed pass rushers. They're trying to get rid of him. Like, what's the problem? Is there a problem? That's how the Texans do business. Mediocre signing. Joke. I mean, they got one of the best linebackers in free agency. Al Shire's 5th in tackles last year. Not a liability in coverage. Couple of Tivandre Sweat fans in here. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Sweat in the right spot makes a lot of sense for the Texans. Build a wall on the Texans defensive line. Don't try to make it political. Any chance they draft Marvin Harrison Jr. in free agency? Nope. Marvin Harrison Jr. could tear his ACL tomorrow, which I don't want him to, knock on wood. He could tear his ACL tomorrow. He's still going top 5. Still going top 5. Quinyon Mitchell's my favorite player in the draft. I don't know if he's going to be there at 23. Probably not going to be there at 23, but I like Quinyon Mitchell a lot. Texans get him. Sign me up for that. And then the second round, you reading my mind here? Troy Franklin, Roman Wilson, Ladd McConkey is supposed to be linked in with Quinyon Mitchell in the first home run draft. Yeah. Quinyon Mitchell 23 would be day one monster with Derek Stingley. I mean, they would have a great cornerback tandem. And then if you get one of those wide receivers in the second round, CJ's having a field day with it. Field day with it. Yeah, there's some really good value. They haven't kept themselves out of anything that they want to go out there and get. So nothing. It's been nothing too crazy, but that's kind of how they operate. You're GM of the Texans. What do you do now? I would sign Simmons and Armstead and just try to continue to fill out the defense. I have no idea what Simmons' actual money is going to cost. Armstead either, I guess, really. A.D. Mitchell at 23 likes the upside there, thinks it could be as much upside as Marvin Harrison Jr. A.D. Mitchell's a freak. He's got everything you need. He's Steve Smith's number 1 wide receiver in this draft. I really like what he brings to the table. He's a monster. Houston guy. Houston area guy, I should say. Houston area guy. You prefer getting Armstead over Danielle Hunter? Well, it was Armstead and Simmons, which probably cost as much as Hunter, I would think. I'm going for quantity over what is, good quality. Realistically, what do you expect Will Anderson Jr. and CJ's year 2 jump to look like? Double-digit sacks from Anderson, be a force that teams have to reckon with. And for CJ, I mean, he could easily be one of the top 5, 6, 7 quarterbacks all in the league. Ooh. Devontae Parker to the Eagles in a move that does not matter. Armstead was around 20. I'd love Simmons on the back end to mentor Petrie. Yeah, Petrie can learn by watching. He can sit on the bench while Simmons plays. Armstead at 20, I'm probably not super interested. That's a lot for a guy that has had some injury concerns. Yeah, Mo City Mitch. Ronald knows. I know A.D. Mitchell's a favorite of my buddy Landry Locker. I know he's a big favorite. Rankin's back. Sure, I'd bring Rankins back, but I wouldn't. You don't necessarily have to prioritize bringing Rankins back. You can kind of turn it into, Rankins coming back if something else doesn't work out. Alexander Madison in the running back room. Better options and worse options. It's fine. Wouldn't make that an investment anytime soon. Hollywood is wide receiver 3. I'm with you on that for sure. If the money comes down, 1-year deal, absolutely. Lets you do whatever you want from a draft pick standpoint. Okay. Let's do this real quick. Did Patrick Queen sign anywhere? Yes, he did. He signed with the Steelers. Let's do this real quick. Just a quick look at the 2024 opponents. And I want to go through the 2024 opponents and say right now, with a couple of days of free agency sort of in the books here, did that team get better? Did that team get worse? Or did that team stay about the same? Baltimore Ravens, I'm going to go slightly better. They kept Matabike. I know they lost Queen, but they got Derrick Henry. I like Derrick Henry for them in that offense. So I'm going to say slightly better for the Ravens. The Bills are worse. They had to lose a bunch of guys. They're in sort of a retool mode, not rebuild mode. Miami Dolphins are worse. They lost a ton of dudes. Chicago Bears, slightly better, I would say. Slightly better. Lions, slightly better than what we thought. They went out and got a corner. Indianapolis Colts, I would say stayed the same, maybe slightly worse. The Colts haven't lost anybody huge. Able to keep Michael Pittman. Zach Moss wasn't coming back because they have the investment in Jonathan Taylor. Jaguars, I'm going to say the Jaguars are slightly worse. I feel like Gabe Davis was a mistake for them. I don't like Gabe Davis's game. And if they lose Calvin Ridley, I'm definitely putting them in slightly worse. And Tennessee Titans, I'll go slightly better. They added a little bit. On the offensive line with Cushenberry, the center, and I'll say slightly better for them. I like Tony Pollard, nice player. On the road, we mentioned Colts, Jaguars, Chiefs, or Colts, Jaguars, Titans already. On the road for the Chiefs, they are about the same. They're the Chiefs. They're always going to be tough. The Patriots are slightly worse. The Jets are about the same. I'll go slightly worse because they haven't quite hit on stuff that people think they need. The Packers are slightly better. The Vikings are worse because they lost their quarterback, and the Cowboys are worse because they haven't done anything. So, let's go. Let's do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 teams from the schedule a little bit better and a couple teams worse. Not bad. Fun little exercise. What would Simmons cost? Justin Simmons, the safety from the Denver Broncos. I don't know. $10 million a year? A couple of years? If it's less, sign it up for sure. Yeah, but they fixed a couple of things on their offense. So I'm going to say slightly better. I'd be happy with Simmons or Poyer. Poyer, the safety from the Buffalo Bills. The Eagles are in contract talks with the Simmons. Of course they are. They are always looking to add safety help, it feels like. Always looking to add safety help. How much cap space do you think the Texans have left? It's between 40 and 50 million, depending on who you look at. Over the cap says 44, 40, around there. So it's about that. You could get it up to 50 pretty easy with some, manipulation of the contracts and stuff. So thoughts on the 23rd pick with what we have now. Still corner, still defensive lineman, end or tackle, wide receiver, a little bit lower on the priority list. A little bit lower. So, all right. No 6-hour stream today, but 2 hours in the books. Anything else pops up, it'll be on the channel. It'll be on Houston Football. Check out Houston Football. It's where I do all my writing. It's just $7 a month. You get everything. If you buy a whole year at once, I'll give you 2 months for free. Okay, you get 2 months for free if you buy a whole year at Houston Football. Do all my writing about the Texans in depth, break it down. News, notes, info. It's 1.5 cups of coffee a month. It's worth it. I will make it worth your $7. If you want a free day, okay, you want a free day, send me an email. My email's in the YouTube description, or it's codystoots@gmail.com, CODYSTOOTS @gmail.com. I'll put it in the chat. Send me an email if you want a free day at Houston Football so you can say, oh, yeah, it's worth it or it's not worth it. You want a free day at Houston Football, let me know. CodyStoots @gmail.com. I'll give you a free day for watching the stream. Of course, there's always free content on there as well. There's free stuff on the site as well. Lots of stuff here on YouTube. Did a video last night. We'll have more videos for you. Check out Landry Locker, the locker room here on YouTube. He does a fantastic job as well. I pop in with him from time to time. He does some great stuff. Check out my friends at Underdog Fantasy in the link in the description down below. The best way to play fantasy, daily fantasy, Underdog Fantasy. The Pick'em format is unmatched, and you get 2 times your first deposit when you subscribe to Underdog Fantasy. What am I missing here? What am I missing? I think that's about it. We finish the show the same way when we do a live stream each and every time. It's my hope to you. It's my charge to you as well. I want you to eat good, sleep good, be good. And I can't wait till we talk Texans again soon.